Huston Smith, it is an honor indeed to welcome you to State of Belief.
My pleasure.
Listen, you grew up in China, the son of Methodist missionary parents, but you were surrounded by a diversity of other religious beliefs: Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, folk religion. As a child growing up, what did you understand about religion?
Well, Christianity I imbibed with my mother's milk. Our home was saturated with Christianity, and so I could no more imagine myself without that than, just leave it at that. The others I observed, and I'm grateful for it letting me know that there is more than one path to salvation. Buddhism was all over. When I would walk down a little lane, I would hear someone mumbling, "Omi Duva, Omi Duva, Omi Duva," and that was because he was believed that uttering the name of the Omi Duva Buddha would carry him to the Western paradise. And then Confucianism was also there, but more muted in the background. But the dominant religion of the little town where I grew up was folk religion. Now, folk religion is the same all over the world. It's just a different idiom in different places. And it hinges on warding off evil spirits. And so when I would walk down the little lanes of my town, I would see on the lintel of houses bottles with their necks jutting outward. And that was to alert the evil spirits that if they tried to enter this house, these cannons would blow them to smithereens. Demons are endlessly malicious, but they're not very bright. They can be outthought.
Let me ask you this. Was your immersion in Christianity such that when you looked at these other religions, you were scared of them as being something evil, something that needed to be transformed?
Well, a good question. As I have indicated, I was saturated with Christianity and didn't pay much attention. I knew that there was Buddhism and Taoism and Islam, so didn't pay much attention to them until when I began to teach, I suddenly bumped into Hinduism. I wasn't looking for it. I was perfectly satisfied with my Christianity. Hinduism, in the form of the Vedanta, the philosophical version of Hinduism, came knocking at my door. I opened it, and I was astonished there was a Vedanta center in St. Louis, and the Swami who monitored that center was an amazing human being. I have met scholars, great scholars before, and I've met saintly human beings before, but never before or since have I found them united in Swami Satpakashananda, who was the director and officiant of the Vedanta Society of St. Louis.
Huston, I read your book, and from your meeting with author Aldous Huxley that led you to learn about Hinduism from a Swami, then there was that unexpected gift from a stranger, William Danforth, that allowed you to travel the world. You met Martin Luther King Jr. and experimented then with hallucinogenic drugs with Timothy Leary. Our mutually good friend, Bill Moyers, once said that your career was inevitable, something that had to happen. It does look like that. Was it a divine push, or what was all of this?
Well, I have to chuckle about that. I could ask you, Welton, did your life just happen? And I think the answer is, for all of us is, yeah, we didn't plan it the way it would go. It just unfolded like turning the pages of a book.
Huston, you are a living, breathing, interreligious movement yourself. You're a Christian who has embraced and practiced Hinduism, Buddhism, and Islam. How do you distinguish such a breadth of religious experience from a relativism in which no one religion is that important?
Well, you just have to set it up differently. And my exploration of the 8 great religions, and the exploration has not simply been in libraries, in books. I have ventured into them and practiced all 8. And they gave me the conclusion, brought me to the conclusion that they are all saying essentially the same thing on. Now I have to pause to introduce a distinction between exoteric and esoteric. Take a walnut. Exoteric is the shell, and esoteric is the kernel. And so the kernel of all 8 religions is the same, but the shells are different shapes.
So do the religions of the world then share common values? And if they do, what are the top 2 or 3 of those values that all of these religions share?
Well, the primary one is to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That is called the Golden Rule. Confucius has the Silver Rule. Do not do unto others what you would not have them do unto you. And they are, all of the religions, the 8 religions, share that common marching order for our lives.
I don't know anyone better than you positioned to look at the scope of religion internationally and nationally. When you look at the state of interreligious relations in the U.S. and around the world, what do you see? And are you hopeful? Are you pessimistic about the future of such relations?
What I see is religion being hijacked by politics, and that always happens. In politics, say international relations, how nations interface, everybody wants to win, and that takes power. And who has the supreme power? God, or Allah, or by whatsoever name. So the politicians will say God is on our side, and our opponent is the empire of evil. And it's the same message. It's like a rubber stamp. You simply stamp the same message on the respective political leaders.
When religion and government become entangled, doesn't religion always lose?
Now, the underlying point is this. Government is an institution. And, Welton, I'm sorry to tell you this, but there is no such thing as a pretty institution. They are all mixed bags because they're made of human beings who are all mixed bag.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, the purity of religion, a belief in the divine, and in the golden rule, that is pure, but when it gets institutionalized, it loses its purity and becomes, should I say, ambiguous or ambivalent? I forget which of those words.
But isn't that true if the institution is government or the institution is a religious institution?
That is true. That holds across the board for all institutions. And just take churches. They raise their budgets, but they also help the poor. I love Mahatma Gandhi's statement. Religion, it may have been Ramakrishna, religion is like a cow. It kicks. However, it also does give milk.
Huston, we have a secular government in the United States, albeit a secular government that appreciates religion. Can a fundamentalist Christian or Muslim or Jew ever be totally supportive of a secular government without compromising their religion?
Well, if we're talking about fundamentalism, if there is no censorship on the airwaves, why my knee-jerk impulse is, well, to hell with them. And I say that less as a curse than as a prediction. In other words, they're going to hell to some degree because of the way they're behaving.
Well, let me ask you the normative question about the relationship between religion and government. What should be the relationship? What is the proper relationship between religion and government institutions?
Well, if one could set it up ideally, why politicians, rulers should have as their intimate advisors knowledgeable religious being, human being, who could direct them and help them to decide which of their decisions is of the most benefit to the whole of humanity.
We talk a lot about, in the United States, we talk a lot about religious liberty and its corollary of church-state separation. What's your perspective on that? So, is that something you affirm, or is it something you question?
Well, they can never be separated completely, but the basic idea there should be no established religion is a very valid one, and we're blessed by having a tripod in our government, and that's ideal, that it should be that way.
I think, if I remember, that we went down this road of talking about religion and government because of your statement about religion getting hijacked by politics, and we were talking about interreligious cooperation. So let me go back there for a minute. Can meaningful interreligious cooperation ever grow in a nation in which Christianity is the majority religion and the loudest voices among Christian leaders claim Christianity offers the only true path to God?
Of course, because the golden rule, do unto others, and is not only for interfaith religion, but it's for institutions as they deal with one another.
But Huston, you know and I know that Christianity is often represented most by what we call the religious right, and these are people who think no one is correct but them.
Yeah.
So doesn't that stand in the way of cooperating with other faiths?
Well, of course it does. And, the world is, humanity is divided between people who think that they are right. However, we have minds. It behooves us to use them.
What strategy would you suggest for people trying to work on better relations between religions in this nation?
The best thing is to get to know personally someone and scan for an upright, intelligent representative of the other religion. That has been my approach, and it has paid off. That is, begin by reading and understanding their scriptures, and then pilgrimage to find a knowledgeable representative, as I did in Swami Saprakashananda, and then continue with the dialogue.
Huston, you call Islam the most misunderstood religion in the world, and indeed one of the most misunderstood subjects in the world. How can we correct that? How can we move beyond Islamophobia in the United States?
Yeah. Get to know Muslims, and not the fanatical ones, but the reasonable ones. And then extend your hand in fellowship, and as you do that, greet them with Salam Alaikum, peace be upon you. Isn't that a wonderful greeting?
It absolutely is.
I mean, what do we do? Well, hi there. How are you? How's it going? But peace be upon you. And then the other party says, and also upon you. I just wish that Christianity had a greeting like that.
Let me ask you a question or two about the future of religion, not ignoring the past, but in your lifetime, what has most hurt the reputation of religion?
Religious wars, and religious bigotry.
Is it really religion causing the war and the bigotry, or is it something else disguised as religion?
If I understand the question, disguised as religion. Because let's look at the word religio. That means to rebind. And we need to be, we are fragmented. Politically, the world is just fragmented. And the reason that I hold out for religion is a good word is etymologically it rebinds where there is fragmentation. I think it was Robert Frost who wrote, something there is that does not like a wall, and that wall indicates division, and religio tries to bring unity, not uniformity, but unity between people.
Huston, what do you see as the great threat to the credibility and integrity of religion?
The failure of human beings to comport their life as their respective religion tells them they should.
The gap between Scripture and action, would that be true?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me ask you then just two or three other short questions about your own experience. I'm curious. You know a lot of religious scripture. You know a lot of religious oral traditions.
Well, let's just let that stand and not probe your statement, but go ahead.
Well, my question is, do you have a favorite passage of scripture or quote from religious oral tradition?
Well, I think the Sermon on the Mount is sublime. I mean, just go back and read those 3 chapters. They turn the world on its head. And they all say, ye have heard it said, but I say to you, you got it all wrong. and the in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus has it all right.
In your autobiographical book, you talk about your appreciation for the word praise.
Oh, wait, I missed the word. Appreciation for the word...
Praise, P-R-A-I-S-E.
Oh, praise?
Right.
Oh, yes.
Now, if you had to sum up your life in a word, what would that word be? Would it be praise or would it be something else?
Oh, well, if you would allow me about 4 words, I would repeat the final words of a Russian monk saying, Saint Chrysostom. He crossed the Tsarina for neglecting the poor, and she sentenced him to be drawn and quartered. And the roads were lined by people who were devoted to this saint, and as he was preparing to be drawn and quartered, his last words were, praise for everything. Thanks for it all. And I would like for those to be my last words as well.
At the beginning of your book, you talk about how when you were in college, a friend would wake you up every morning at 6 a.m. to go to work, and you'd sit up in bed and say, good. Do you still say that word every morning when you wake up?
Well, I do, if not audibly or even internally, verbally, voice the word, but the sentiment is exactly the same.
Now, I have 2 last questions, and I'll be quick with them. One is, Huston, what question should I have asked you that I haven't asked you?
What question should I ask you?
That's what I'm asking you.
No, but I'm answering it.
Oh, okay.
You should ask me, what question should I ask you that I haven't? Is that a cop-out?
That's a little bit of a cop-out. What do I need to know about you that I haven't yet found out?
Okay. I am saying the prayer that a 10-year-old boy's mother found scribbled on a piece of paper beside his bed, and it read, Dear God, I'm doing the best I can, Willie.
That's wonderful. Now, one more question, and this takes imagination, but imagine that you have an opportunity for 1 minute or so to talk to all of the religious leaders and all of the political leaders in our world, and they ask you, what is your advice to us? What would you say to them?
Act in the way that will most benefit all of humanity and our planet.
Huston Smith, thank you for being with us on State of Belief.
Well, thank you for your interest.